There are milder and stronger forms of it. Some of the symptoms are depression. There's a fatigue or a lack of interest in your usual activities. You tend to withdraw socially. You might put on a few pounds. You might go on eating binges. And there are some physical disorders that come about with this too, such as apparently hypoglycemia and viral infections. Of course, this opens the gates to flus and colds of all kinds. And it all goes back to what we've, I think, talked about in so far as wellness is concerned. It is the ability to go into meditation and change either your perspective of things or your reaction to things. The symptoms that we have here with SAD are, reactions that cause the stress response. And the way to undo the stress response is through meditation and through breathing. There's no one exact cause of seasonal affective disorder, but it tends to occur in locations that are closer to the equator. I'm sorry, that's exactly wrong. It tends to occur in or becomes more common the farther away from the equator that you live, and it's rarely found in locations that are close to the equator. It's been linked to a biochemical imbalance in the brain prompted by shorter daylight hours and a lack of sunlight in the winter. Sleep-related hormone melatonin may also be implicated since it is produced at night, and because longer hours of darkness can lead to greater production of melatonin. A drop in serotonin that affects your mood might play a role. Reduced sunlight can cause serotonin levels to fall. The most difficult months for those who are affected by this are January and February. Now, those causes that they say don't really explain much about the symptoms of SAD that occur in the summer, which are anxiety, insomnia, irritability, agitation, weight loss, poor appetite, and increased sex drive. That's interesting. So apparently they're not even looking at that. Probably because more people suffer from the winter seasonal affective disorder than the summer one. So there's no way to diagnose this. I mean, there's no medical diagnosis for this, other than a history of whether you have a history of depression, and if this reoccurs in the same season every year for at least a period of 2 consecutive years. And then also if it's followed by, if the depression changes when the season changes, and there's no other explanations for the changes in mood or behavior. In other words, there's no drugs or no physical ailments or trauma to the head or neurological system, then you can be pretty sure that you are dealing with seasonal affective disorder. And there's ways of dealing with this with light therapy. There are light boxes you can get. that that can help you. Um, it all depends on how severe the symptoms are. Sometimes they may put you on medication too, although I think that's probably um, not the best approach. But one of the things that you can really do to help with any kind of stressor or seasonal depression is an aerobic exercise and breathing. So the breathing technique that you can use is called the 4-7-8 breath. This really helps trigger the relaxation response, which is what you want to get to help you to deal with any of these things, whether it's physical ailments or emotional ailments. So what you do is you exhale completely through your mouth and kind of make a whooshing sound like and you close your mouth and you inhale quickly and quietly through your nose as you count to 4. Hold your breath as you count to 7, and then slowly exhale through your mouth, making a whooshing sound as you count to 8. And then you repeat that entire cycle 3 more times, so that you do it 4 times in total. So again, you exhale, then you breathe in for a count of 4, hold for a count of 7, exhale for a count of 8. And you do that 4 times. And this will help you to relax. This will help you to de-stress. And this will help you, activate the relaxation response that we want when we're trying to heal from any situation or condition. All right. It's corn, beans, and squash. They are the 3 sisters, if you will. But the story of the 3 sisters varies from tribe to tribe. This one is from the Indian legends of eastern Canada. There's a strong Native American population in Canada, maybe more so than here in the United States. And they continue the traditions. But here's the story. The 3 sisters, a long time ago, there were 3 sisters who lived together in a field. Now, these sisters were quite different from one another in their size and way of dressing. The little sister was so young that she could only crawl at first, and she was dressed in green. The second sister wore a bright yellow dress, and she had a way of running off by herself when the sun shone and the soft wind blew in her face. And the third sister was the eldest sister, standing always very straight and tall above the other sisters and trying to protect them. She wore a pale green shawl, and she had long yellow hair that tossed about her head in the breeze. There was one way the sisters were all alike, though. They loved each other dearly, and they always stayed together. This made them very strong. Now, one day, a stranger came to the field of the 3 sisters, a Mohawk boy. He talked to the birds and other animals. This caught the attention of the 3 sisters. Late that summer, the youngest and smallest sister disappeared, and her sisters were sad. Again, the Mohawk boy came to the edge to gather reeds at the water's edge. The 2 sisters who were left watched his moccasin trail, and that night the second sister, the one in the yellow dress, disappeared as well. Now only the eldest sister was left. She continued to stand tall in her field, and when the Mohawk boy saw that she missed her sisters, he brought them all back together and became stronger together again. So this Three Sisters myth comes from an Iroquois creation myth in which sky and fell through to an endless sea. And the animals saw her coming, so they took the soil from the bottom of the sea and spread it onto the back of a giant turtle. That's what the Iroquois called Turtle Island, and what we now call North America. Apparently, Sky Woman had become pregnant before she fell, and when she landed, she gave birth to a daughter. And when the daughter grew into a young woman, she also became pregnant, apparently by the west wind, and gave birth to twin boys. But in giving birth to these twin boys, the young woman passed away, and so Sky Woman buried the daughter in the new earth, and from her grave grew the three sacred plants, corn, beans, and squash, which provided food for her sons and later for all of humanity. So this Three Sisters story has to do with the way that these crops were grown by the Iroquois. The Three Sisters are corn, of course, beans, and squash, as I said. And they thrive when they are grown next to each other. So the corn is planted first, and when it starts to grow, the bean seeds are put in, and the bean starts to grow, and the corn provides support for the bean stalks to climb on. And then the squash grows big, and the leafy squash leaves protect both the corn and the bean seeds by keeping the ground cool. So, of course, green beans, we know, are pretty prevalent around this time of year. We have corn, of course, which starts to go away. At least corn on the cob starts to go away after summer. But you can still get frozen corn, of course, and then squash. So squash comes in a variety of forms around this time of year. Pumpkins are used, and they are one form of squash. But you also have things like zucchini and yellow squash, things like that. All of these have incredible healthy benefits for you. Corn, when you eat it fresh or off the cob, has a lot of fiber, and you get niacin, potassium, vitamin A, and your starch and your protein. Beans, of course, green beans, you can have wax or lima beans. And then there's varieties of dried beans as well, like kidney beans or garbanzo beans or pinto beans. Those types of beans give you a lot of fiber and protein, almost half of your daily value of those things, and also manganese, a mineral that's essential for energy production and antioxidant protection. And they're low in calories, and they're high in fiber. So there's all kinds of varieties of beans that you can use. And then squash, of course. You can have pumpkin, but that also includes things like zucchini and other forms of that vegetable. Yams, too, I believe, are considered to be part of the squash family. Yams are pretty popular this time of year as we get into Thanksgiving. So that's the story of the Three Sisters. Corn, beans, and squash. And those Three Sisters should keep you pretty healthy and pretty well balanced if you use them, properly in your meals.